Good evening. I'm John Yang. On this Sunday before the New Hampshire primary, the Republican presidential field has narrowed. Late this afternoon, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis ended his candidacy and endorsed Donald Trump. He made the announcement on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter.
It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden.
This makes the contest for the Republican presidential nomination a two-person race. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is the only other competitor than Trump. Lisa Desjardins has been in New Hampshire for the last few days. Right now, she's in Hampton, New Hampshire. Lisa, I know this happened relatively late, but I also know you've probably been working the phone since it happened. What does this do to the race?
Well, if you ask former President Trump, and reporters did ask him a short time ago what this means, characteristically, former President Trump said he had the votes regardless. But for Nikki Haley, while some of her supporters say this gives her an opportunity to win over some new voters, the truth is, talking to those in her inner circle, they do believe that most of DeSantis' voters will go with former President Trump. However, they want to see any bump they can, because here in New Hampshire, while right now, I'm told by those close to Nikki Haley that they think she will come in second, the margin will matter. The closer she can get to former President Trump here, the longer she has in this campaign, the more of a chance they say she can prove herself in South Carolina. So how much does it matter? It is probably a matter of margins, and it might be a small one, because really, in the end of this, John, that's the reason DeSantis is dropping out. His margins of support here in New Hampshire and going forward in South Carolina were small. And it's not clear he had the money, despite initially having tens of millions of dollars at his disposal, a super PAC with over $100 million. This campaign imploded, and it's not clear that even has big enough margins to really make a massive difference in the campaign ahead for those who are left.
Let's talk about the dynamics of the campaign. How does this change campaigning and the message, perhaps, for both Nikki Haley and Donald Trump and moving forward after New Hampshire?
Well, for former President Trump, he already is trying to focus on South Carolina for a couple of reasons. That's because New Hampshire is his most competitive state, maybe the last place that he faces any kind of real competition, if you ask him and those around him. In fact, we went to a rally last night here in Manchester, New Hampshire. He introduced officials from South Carolina there. But what I noticed that was important, John, was the size of the crowd. I did an actual head count, and I counted over 4,100 people. That's significant because in that same venue 4 years ago, I saw 12,000 people come out for Donald Trump. Now, he has more events this year and that, but there could be an enthusiasm question for him going ahead. And when you ask Trump voters what they care about, it is the border, some cultural issues like transgender, but above it all is the economy.
I knew right from the beginning, because he has such great business sense, that he would make a great leader, and he did.
His opponents say there is a great risk in that he brings chaos. Some people see him as divisive.
We're in chaos right now, right? We have, the cost of living is going up incredibly. There's violence and chaos everywhere.
Now, the latest FBI statistics, newly out from last year, actually show that violent crime is down last year. And in fact, we have been below pre-pandemic levels. Murder itself is plummeting in the United States. So this idea is out of step. It's a disconnect with the reality right now as far as crime, and especially in most cities in America. Now, as for the cost of living, also new statistics there, John, show that inflation has been improving. It is still around 3 to 4%, but that's dramatically down from 2022 when we saw the 7-8% levels. It's still higher than the Federal Reserve wants, 2%. And I will tell you, people are still feeling that, though. Whether the levels are going down, here I just spoke to someone in a bar, just I can see right across the way, told me he spent $110 to fill up his gas tank. And that is one reason he plans to vote for Donald Trump. So all of this is issues for Joe Biden must face, but also issues for Nikki Haley.
Speaking of Joe Biden, there is a Democratic primary on Tuesday, but President Biden is not on the ballot. Why is that, and who is on the ballot?
Let me explain the calendar here, because this is incredibly unusual. First of all, the Democratic Party announced their schedule that they approved for the Democrats for their primaries, putting South Carolina first. That was something President Biden endorsed February 3rd. And then they were going to have Nevada and New Hampshire on February 6th after that, followed by Michigan, and then later on Super Tuesday. Well, New Hampshire has a law saying it has to be the first primary in the country, rejected the Democratic Party's dates, and instead decided to move their own primary up to where it is now on January 23rd. As punishment, John, the Democratic National Party said it will withhold delegates from the state of New Hampshire, and President Biden made the decision not to appear on the ballot at all. So some of his allies in this state are starting on their own a volunteer effort to write him in. The ballot has almost 24 names on it, so people must write him in at the bottom. Trying to edge him out in this state is Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips. Seems like a long shot, but I got to tell you, the first surprise I've had on this campaign trail was an event he just had where he had a true surge of people. We'll see if they come out and if he has a chance to upset a write-in Joe Biden on Tuesday.
A week ago, Lisa, you were talking to voters in Iowa where turnout, it turned out, was relatively low. How did the feeling and the mood you're hearing in New Hampshire compare to what you heard in Iowa?
It is almost night and day. Still cold, but much more excitement here. You see yard signs all around the state. And if you just walk into any restaurant, you talk to someone at a coffee shop or at a gas station, they're tuned in and they're planning to vote. In Iowa, most people you talk to were not tuned in and were not planning to vote. They had a snowstorm, but it felt like it was more than that there. So more excitement here, I'd say, or at least people planning to vote more than in Iowa.
Lisa Desjardins, the excitement in New Hampshire. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Lisa will be reporting from New Hampshire for Tuesday night's live coverage of the primary starting at 11 p.m. Eastern here on PBS.